Hello again.
Hello again, Bob.
Hello?
Well, it's down to you now, sir.
Right.
Now, Bob, we were talking earlier. Am I right in thinking that you were the Yorkshireman?
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. And let me see, Tiverton, that's right. And you married your wife?
That's right.
There's an old broadcasting saying to cover that sort of thing, I'm told.
The old broadcaster's prayer used to be, Ted, and I think it certainly applies in your case, embrace your game before you open your mouth.
Today's topic for this burst of broadcasting blunders is politics.
Dr. Maziri is regarded as a man in the calmer mould, and if elected, is expected to carry on Sir Soretsi's policies.
First, though, we'll look at the world of the professional broadcasters who, day in and day out, pour forth thousands of pearls of news and sport and current affairs and general information for us to hear and believe. After all, people do believe what they hear on the radio.
An assassination attempt has failed. Shots were fired at his ear and at his car as it was being driven along a motorway near Mönchengladbach.
Sometimes the news can be a bit more hard to take.
From then on, the negotiations were a harrowing affair, with the gang threatening to kill and maim Emmanuel and even send his head home in a box. In a box.
For some reason, not sure why, we tend to expect all broadcasters to have an infallible grasp of things like elementary geography.
And their hospital is in Jerusalem, where the Knights of St. John first came from.
Whereabouts is Jerusalem? Remind me.
In Israel.
Oh, that Jerusalem.
Some producers like to pre-record parts of their programmes to make sure an item is fine-tuned and exactly as they want it before it's broadcast.
Varicose veins are those unsightly clumps of twisted and knotted veins. Right, 3, 2, 1. Varicose veins are those unsightly clumps of twisted...
I think we need to pause for thought and whatever else is needed.
2 minutes to 9, Saturday the 24th of March, and time now for our morning massage from Father Anthony O'Dowd.
Maybe we can go for a proper take now, God willing.
Varicose veins are those unsightly clumps of twisted and not... Varicose veins are those unsightly clumps... I thought I'm getting better.
A rhetorical question, I suspect.
Varicose veins... Varicose veins are those... Look, we haven't got very much tape on.
Enough, but maybe we'd better give up on that one and get back to live broadcasting, where, if anything goes even slightly wrong, the presenter's got to keep going.
So go along to the merchant now and buy your seed potatoes. And the next thing is, you're going to bring them home and sprout them. This is known as chitting potatoes.
I don't believe it.
But it has been proved, scientifically this is, that... potatoes that have been chitted and produce these little shoots will produce much heavier crops.
And if you believe that, you'll believe anything.
Varicose veins are those unsightly clumps of... You're not keeping this tape, I hope.
Well, actually...
No, please don't.
Oh, all right.
Right.
Every week we dip into the archives for one of those moments when a member of the general public steps boldly into the limelight of the live airwaves. It can be a phone-in or even a quiz, and this week we're in a telephone box in Norfolk, in the middle of a mystery voice competition.
I wondered if your mystery voice has been on, because I think I know it.
Well, hang on, where are you ringing from?
Huh?
Where are you ringing from?
That's Mrs. M.J. Lancaster.
Yes, but I thought when I put it through I heard an operator say go ahead. Did you get the call through an operator?
Yes, I did call the operator because I think the phones were out in Old Buckingham.
Oh, I see. Well,
in Attleborough.
Yes. Are you in a call box or something?
Yes.
Oh, right. Well,
you're on the air at the moment, my love.
Yes, all right.
Yes, and you're through to the mystery voice.
Yes.
So it's your big opportunity. Who do you think it is?
The traffic has gone so much that I can't hear.
Who do you...
In Attleborough, you know, on the main road.
Who do you think the mystery voice is?
Pardon?
Hey? Who do you think the mystery voice is, then?
Who do I think it is?
Yes.
I wondered if that's a lady from Kilverston Park.
You mean Lady Fisher?
Yes.
No.
Oh.
Thanks anyway.
Oh, all right.
Hope the traffic...
That put my mind to rest. I've been hearing it 2 or 3 days.
Well, who are you, anyway?
Yes, pardon?
Well...
I haven't ever, been in detail with you before or met you before, but I'm very interested in Radio Norfolk, and I've been hearing it this last 2 or 3 days, and I thought I would just come into Attleborough and just phone up in case I did, because I knew you was going to try and put one or two, you know.
Yeah.
It was two today, you know,
Clues.
and I thought probably I shouldn't get it, but that seemed very much like her voice.
Yes. I tell you what, if you're in the main street of Attleborough, are you?
Yes.
Oh, well, that'll be good when they get that bypass, because the traffic's devastating. Can you hear it?
Yeah.
I mean, you could hardly hear us, could you?
There's too much traffic going by, I can't hear.
Another mind-boggling phone call from the radio, same time next week. And that noise takes us into the BBC Club Bar once more for a bit of eavesdropping. Lots of really famous people come in here, recalling some personal nightmare.
Well, I had an amazing one. It was years and years ago, before I started presenting Woman's Hour. And I was working in local radio, and we were doing a phone-in about a book that had just been published called Breast is Best. And we had a doctor in the studio, and women were phoning up and asking questions about breastfeeding and should they do this and how long should they do it for and what have you. And he was very good, and he was answering the questions. And I could see the clock was ticking up towards news time. So I knew I had to finish it. Kate Adie, I think, was the newsreader, and she was standing there waiting to go. So I looked this guy straight in the eye, desperate to wrap this conversation up. And I said, so, doctor, what you're saying is you would go for the breast every time.
Another visit to the BBC Club Bar next week. If you want to know who, look in the Radio Times. The topic for today is the convoluted world of politics, local, national and international.
One year I vote Republican, the next year I vote Democrat. I'm bisexual.
The Conservative Party leadership election. The small black ballot box in Committee Room 12 in the Palace of Westminster has just been opened.
Well, listening with us to all that at Westminster is the Home Secretary, Douglas Hurd. Good evening, Mr. Hurd.
Well, it's the Foreign Secretary, actually.
I beg your... We aren't out of date. It's a brainstorm and an aberration. I know, of course, that you are Foreign Secretary. My apologies. Thanks for putting us right.
Since we joined Europe properly, we've had to take a very positive stand to keep up with the European way of life.
In Brussels, the meeting of the Common Market Ministers was delayed for 2 months because of the French presidential election.
A slip-up so easily made by absolutely anybody.
Matthew Engel of The Guardian is the new editor of Wisden, whose comments are indispensable to so many of our cricket commentators. And Mark Loss of The Independent is back from the election trail. a little hung. After that, I think I better stop now while I'm behind.
And no matter who's in front in any election, the only thing that really counts is the precise number of votes.
Voting in the general election is now well underway, and by the time the polling stations close at 10 o'clock tonight, 30 people are expected to have turned out.
That many? For someone born in the lovely city of Dublin, I reckon I'm entitled to declare a certain interest in Irish politics, though their election dates can be terribly confusing.
Next Thursday, Friday the 18th, the people of the Irish Republic go to the polls to elect a new government.
Way back during the Falklands War, the Prime Minister, Mrs. Thatcher, was riding on a power trip that seemed to give her the authority to do almost anything, even elect a new President of the United States.
The Right Honourable Gentleman has missed the point. What we wish to secure is Argentine withdrawal. We've tried for 8 weeks through the Security Council and through the good offices of President Haig.
President who?
And through Peru to try to secure Argentine withdrawal. It's not the United Nations that stands in the way, or President Haig, or the British government.
Still, nobody'd get her name wrong.
And humility.
Well, Mrs. Finchley, I'm terribly sorry, Mrs. Thatcher. Mrs. Thatcher of Finchley.
Why was she nicknamed Maggie?
I just think because Maggie is probably short for Margaret, isn't it?
That's political journalists for you. Tough questions from the very toughest people. Now then.
Varicose veins are those unsightly clumps of twisted and knotted veins that appear on the leg. Not many people have them dealt with and leap out of bed as quickly as Mrs. Thatcher, although they are far commoner among women than men.
If you're old enough, you might remember all the fuss about the Cecil Parkinson-Sarah Keyes affair and the speculation on whether he'd have to resign over it. If he did, would Mrs. Thatcher accept his resignation?
Mrs. Thatcher says she has, with great regret, accepted it. From Westminster, our political editor, Peter Murphy.
The real question now is, has Mrs. Thatcher accepted it?
But when the news did finally break, whatever programme was being transmitted had to be interrupted in the dash to be first with the news. Though, in one case, the timing of the news flash left something to be desired.
It takes a while to make each puppet. That's why there's only Maggie at the moment.
But thank you very much indeed for coming in. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Punch.
Nice to see you, Mr. Punch, Rod, and all your friends. Thanks very much indeed.
He's a guy, wink good looking, a painted smile gets him through the day, but late at night, his sole intention is to get me on my own, and I know the game he wants to play.
Just break into Joyce Sarney to bring you an important news flash from Norman Rickard.
We've just heard that the Secretary for Trade and Industry, Mr. Cecil Parkinson, has resigned. And it's been reported that the Prime Minister has accepted his resignation. There'll be more details in the news at 10 o'clock.
And before you could say the word, there he was, back in the front line again, talking about the main threat in British politics.
We don't regard the alliance as our enemy. We don't like the alliance. We regard the real threat to this country and the real threat to us as the Labour Party.
These days, it doesn't seem to matter which side of the political spectrum you come from, though it pays to know your political geography.
We've seen a police force deployed in a way that most observers thought could only happen, say, in Poland or some other South American country.
And my geography teacher told me that Swindon was a town in West Wiltshire, but then I'm only a mere broadcaster.
If the difficulties that the economy faced were solely the result of domestic economic mismanagement, it is an oddity. It is an oddity, therefore, that the recessions in USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Swindon, Finland, and many other countries as well.
Still, at least most politicians know which party they support, especially if they're ministers.
John Major and Douglas Hurd are going to Maastricht to negotiate treaties which will safeguard the vital interests of the British people. We are the only party that is doing that, as anybody who watched John Smith's shamefully evasive interview with Brian Walden yesterday could see for themselves.
If I may suggest, you're being evasive about my question. I said, what is your view of what Mrs. Thatcher said?
And I've told you that John Smith has made the government's position absolutely clear and has the overwhelming support of the Conservative Party and, indeed, I believe, the country.
People often accuse broadcasters of manipulating their interviewees. Of course, politicians never do, especially when a programme's live.
Right, well, the time now is 11 minutes to 11, and that means it's time to get back to the town hall and wacko Dave Freeman. Dave.
Hello, Henry, yes, because Tom Bennion... Pardon?
The lady over there who brought the subject up, wouldn't it be rather nice if, in a conversation to me, she would say, but I've heard, and you could dress it up like that?
We could do that if we weren't on live now. MPs never set things up. I wonder if someone's recorded that. Don't stand on my foot.
Next week, our topic is sport, and we'll be hearing from one of the greatest broadcasters of all time.
What else you got? Those two stones there, what are those?
These are the old bowling stones, which the chap shoots are literally... I'll have to give over really. What?
What are those two stones down there, then?
Sorry, I've got it again. I'll come to it in a minute.
Right.
I think all right now.
Okay.
Yep.
And what are those two stones down on the floor?
We're running out of time.
Now, what else you got? Those two stones, what are those?
These are the old bowling stones, which the chap is used to literally... I've got it again, I'm sorry.
We really do have to wind up now.
These two stones, what are these?
These are the old bowling stones, which the chap is used to carve... Sorry, no,
oh, he begins to shake at the mention of it.
And that's it. Until next week, of course. Don't fail to miss it, will you? So, from me...
And from the British Broadcasting Corporation...
Bye-bye.
Bloopers was an independent production, devised, produced and presented by Jonathan Hewat.
I'm crying. Can we try again?